like some. Right. So, but I'm saying when it catches and it's live on your side, you gonna let me know? Well, what's that? Okay, because there's like a 7-second delay, depending on the latency. Oh, and we got to remember we got to hit somebody up about I know. Giving you guys some inside baseball on a Wednesday morning.
Very exciting stuff.
Yeah. We got to get somebody, yeah, everyone's gone, to make sure we're getting the ads turned off post live. Right? I mean,
do they keep turning on? YouTube's been so weird. It's like
I know.
The same we had that issue with chat where just chat would randomly turn off for no reason.
Like what's the monetization on this? A couple bucks for a strategy show?
Yeah, it's not much.
No point. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL strategy show. Wednesday morning. We're halfway there. Almost half. I guess Thursday's halfway there. Like Wednesday night's halfway there. I don't know. Got a big hurricane bearing down on the southwestern side of Florida. That's scary. Many things happening. We're about a month out from the election, Greg. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, there's by the way, I didn't even think about this. Are there football games? Because I haven't looked at like is there any games that could be impacted by the weather this weekend?
No.
Okay, good.
No, there aren't. Plus, this is going to be long gone by the time Sunday comes around. Like it's expected to make landfall sometime this afternoon, like late afternoon, I believe.
All right. Yeah, just wasn't sure if it could be something that like impacts travel and then maybe have to move location to games. But yeah, it was something I literally hadn't thought about until just now.
The Bucks already evacuated days ago, I think. Like I think they already just got out and they're playing in what? New Orleans this week. So yeah, we'll see. Ready to talk some football?
Yeah, and it is. It's Tampa Bay at New Orleans, and another game with a low total. It makes sense now that Derek Carr's out, and who knows what the hell they're going to do with the backup.
What did that line move to? I grabbed it yesterday at 2 for Tampa, but it already swung, so it might. I feel like it's got to move through 3, right?
Yeah, it's 3.5 right now.
Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, Jake Haener at quarterback. That's not going to inspire. It's not going to inspire much What's that?
Or Rattler, they said they might play.
Yeah, if it's Spencer Rattler, that doesn't make things any better, though. And that's on the main slate. Yeah, Rattler's viewed as a strong candidate to start Sunday against the Bucks. I mean, okay, fine. That doesn't tell you all that much. It does make you wonder, though, do they just find every way possible to get Alvin Kamara the football?
You would have to think so. How comfortable are they going to be throwing the ball downfield when, I mean, they had last week, how many pass attempts did we see out of?
Well, from Carr, you had 28.
Out of Haener.
Oh, Haener probably 3.
Yeah, so it was so bad he threw 3 pass attempts, and they decided, I don't know if we want to go with him again next week after seeing
7
3 pass attempts.
7. Yeah, I know. But also, I mean, talk about getting thrown to the wolves. Like you come in the 4th quarter down against the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. It's not exactly, I mean, that's like the worst litmus test out there I don't know. I can't imagine Spencer Rattler would have performed that much better under pressure. Now they've got a home spot, but we're going to break it all down. Happy to have you guys with us. If you don't mind, take a single second here. Atone for your sins this morning. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below. I try and read and respond to all of them. You'll notice that if you do so. We had some great ones on the First Look show yesterday. Although somebody said, you guys are too verbose. Tighten it up. It's like an hour-long show. If the way I see it, and I know Tom Kennedy may disagree with me, but the way I see it, Greg, if people are tuning into a Tuesday football show Like everyone just wants to listen to and talk about football. If you're tuning into a Tuesday show, I think the brevity should be left for the later in the week shows like Friday and stuff where people are tuning in to get the quick fix. But if I'm listening to a Tuesday DFS show, it's not even like a betting show, because a betting show, at least you're seeking out closing line value and trying to get in before the odds move. If I'm trying to get in on Tuesday to watch some DFS content, just coming along for the ride, you know?
Yeah, looking at the initial pricing, trying to figure out where the field might go. It's not like you're sitting there going, "Oh, this guy should be projected for 22.7 fantasy points." It's a little more guesswork.
Yeah. Anyway, happy you guys could join us. Jordan, what is our sub count, by the way? Help us get to 200. I'm just kidding. I told you I'd stop. All right. So single lineup sim building show. Now, what we do here is we don't just build lineups out mindlessly like drones and try and provide no information. The idea here is, and yes, Bug Boy, Taysom Hill has fractured ribs. The idea here is for us to be able to not just build out good lineups and see what type of lineups sim out the best in the single lineup sim, where you're getting instant feedback with a simmed field on every single lineup you build by hand, but also just to go over some of the players that we find interesting this week, guys that stand out to us as potential great plays. Maybe some value, which, spoiler alert, if you didn't watch yesterday, there is not, value's terrible on this slate. So I can't wait for us to try and build out some actual high price stacks and see if it works. And all of this other stuff. But yeah, it's not great. Shout out to you too, because on these shows last week, this is where we came across wow, we're not getting much Slayton. This could be a great boost. This is you I'm talking about. You were all over Slayton. I ended up boosting him, and that put me in some really good spots on Sunday. So we try and unearth some of that stuff every week while building out lineups that we think can grade out well.
Yeah, and it was the same when I was doing the Sunday morning show where we have all the final information, and Jordan and I look at the projections and the ownership and everything. It was same deal. We built some lineups around Darius Slayton, and it went well. And we've also got, which you guys will see, some updates to the single lineup sims tool that just went live yesterday that are going to be reflected. We built some lineups out today.
Well, let's just do this. Go ahead and fill the people in, because this will set us up perfectly to dive right into it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be easiest when we actually build out a lineup and then press the simulate button, because a lot of times people have been asking Lofty and myself after build out a lineup, is this a good sim ROI? Is this a good sim ROI? And I mean, the reality is anything that has, like a positive number is generally going to be considered a good lineup to be entering into tournaments. But also on certain slates like this one, for instance, it might be harder to have lineups that have a higher sim ROI if there's less value or anything like that. So we have a new back-end metric involved where when you build out your lineups and you simulate them, you're going to get feedback where it says, this is a good lineup, this is a great lineup. And that should make it a little bit more clear to people who are using this is relative to that slate. How good is that lineup actually? So then you don't have to ask like, oh, is this 60% sim ROI lineup good for this slate? Like, it is going to tell you directly.
I was trying to get Jordan Crabtree, who's on the product design team, for when you build a negative lineup for the Sims to just berate you.
Just yell slurs at you.
Just call you awful names. Yeah. Yeah. Get back to the drawing board, asshole. But that would be like subtle. That would be tame. Ready to get into this?
Let's build some lineups.
Let's do it, man. All right. So the question now is, where do we want to start? Deeg said he likes slates where there's no value. I'm actually in agreement with you. I enjoy those type of slates too. But this one's a little weirder because there are some really good high price stacks. There isn't a lot of good value. There are some good mid-range stacks as well. So where do you think the best spot to start is? I'll let you, I started last week. What kind of build do you want to kick it off with?
Well, one of my favorite games to be targeting, I already saw people bring it up in chat, and part of it, I think, is because Dak Prescott is, I believe, the thumbnail of the YouTube show. But I really like the Dallas-Detroit game. I think both sides of it, either with Prescott as the QB or Goff as the QB, both of them make a whole lot of sense to me. But I say let's start with the Dak Prescott and make a game stack here.
All right. I like it. Jose asks, can you please build a lineup with Justin Fields Uh, yeah, we can do a Justin Fields lineup in a little bit. Let's go Dak. We have to throw CD in here. There's no alternative.
You could go Jake Ferguson.
I want Ferguson too, but to not have CD in this lineup to me seems like it might be a rough idea.
Yeah.
You don't
Dak
think
can,
so?
I mean, if you went like a single stack with Prescott and Ferguson, I don't think it would be terrible. But yeah, let's go. It is my preferred way to stack is to go CD Lamb and Jake Ferguson with Dak.
And Lamb is expensive. Now we could go if I'm doing this because Dak Prescott's not someone that provides a ton of rushing upside. I want another guy in there too. Now it can be Jalen Tolbert, who I think is a very nice value this week. It could be Ferguson. You could try and get weird with Kavonte Turpin as well, who only ran 15 routes last week, but was targeted on 5 of them, 33% targets per route run. Pretty significant with Brandon Cooks on the IR. The Lions are very good at turning opponents into a one-dimensional offense. They can stop the run. The Dallas Cowboys don't have any semblance of a run game to speak of right now to begin with. So this is me, Greg, and I get where you're saying where you probably could go single stack, skinny stack. I like the double stack with Dak because your wide receiver 2 or your tight end are not breaking the bank. And that's why with, a lack of value on this slate, I want to go QB +2 with Dak.
Yep, totally makes sense. Overall, my favorite, just relative to price, my favorite stacking partner with Dak, it is Jake Ferguson. Not because I expect him to outscore CD Lamb or anything, but just because this is at least as of right now a very price sensitive slate. So I feel like Ferguson's a little bit underpriced at 5K, whereas CD Lamb just kind of appropriately priced at $8,600. So like double stacks, but if you're telling me across 20 lineups, who's the player who should be stacking the most with Dak, I would say Jake Ferguson.
Also, tight end's terrible this week.
Terrible the entire year.
Yeah. This
Maybe
week
going forward, it seems like Kelsey's going to be good again now that Rashee Rice is out. But I mean, beyond that, it's just a shit position.
Yeah. Because Laporta's been non-existent. He'll have his games, but it's not easy to project him for big games. McBride's solid, but the fact that you have Marvin Harrison Jr. there now, like a lot of these tight ends have other really good players around them where they didn't last year. Laporta did, but Jamison Williams wasn't a factor, right? So yeah. Brock Bowers is nice, but that's not a good matchup against Pittsburgh, although I don't hate him. So we got Prescott, Lamb, and Ferguson. I'm throwing a defense in here I got to see what we can work with. And I'm going $2,400 Patriots against Houston.
Okay.
We don't have to. We can see what else is out there. Any defense that project well that are cheap? Tampa's the answer.
The Saints also. I mean, the Saints are $2,700 in that matchup against Tampa Bay. Have to figure they're going to slow the pace down of that game, and the defense is going to be fresh when they come out on the field. So, I mean, at $2,700 for New Orleans, I mean, I think that's a viable cheap defense. I mean, relative to us saying like the Patriots at 2,400. What else is cheap?
How do we have the Bucks projected so much lower with no Derek Carr?
I would guess it's because we're expecting the Saints to run the ball more than throw, and therefore it limits the scoring opportunities for the opposing defense.
Very possible. All right, Saints. You want to try Saints here, or do you want to go let's try Saints, 2,700. If we need to, we can go down to the Pats at 2,400 against the Texans, who have no Nico Collins, and it looks like Mixon could be in danger of missing another game as well, which
is not crazy. It seemed 2 weeks ago, reports were Mixon looked like he was going to be ready to play. There's reporters saying Mixon's going to be good to go this weekend. He doesn't end up playing. Then it was never even like a question. He was out all of last week. So it's been very weird.
SMP, what's up, dude? Am I a complete psycho to like a Will Levis, Ridley, Hopkins stack against the Colts pass D that gets shredded weekly with the added benefit of getting leverage on a potentially chalky Pollard? No, I mean, it's not insane. This Indy defense is just pitiful right now, man. And they're showing no real signs of improvement. So I see where you're going. Look, just been betting overs on these Colts games each week because of how bad this defense is, and the offense is pretty decent. I'd like it even more if you have Joe Flacco in there, because you might see real shootout conditions in a game like this, and less just running out the clock if Anthony Richardson's there. But I don't think it's insane. I don't know how well it's going to grade out though, Greg.
But just because you brought it up from the same game, Titans defense, particularly if Anthony Richardson ends up starting. I mean, Richardson, his range of outcomes is maybe the most extreme of any quarterback in the league right now. If you told me that Anthony Richardson's a Pro Bowl player at the end of the year, wouldn't surprise me. If you told me he lost his job to Joe Flacco, also wouldn't surprise me. He makes some incredible, and like on both ends of the spectrum, some incredibly great and incredibly terrible plays in the same game. Titans defense at $2,800. That's another cheap one that's worth considering.
Absolutely. If Richardson's in, yeah. That could be a -3 defensive performance or a 30. So I get it. That gives us 5,400 per player remaining. Now you see what I'm saying. The CD stack is tough, but we got to try it. Running back, I'll be honest. And S&P, I don't disagree that getting away from a chalky Pollard is a bad or a good idea. But I think Pollard here at 6K is still the best value running back on the slate.
And a lot of it's because he doesn't have much competition. Like, who else would you go to for cheap and feel decent about? You know, maybe you go back to Najee Harris if Jaylen Warren's out again.
Ugh. It's just gross.
Other than that, yeah, I mean, Najee Harris has been rough, but, you know, the workload for this kind of slate, it would be very dependent on Jaylen Warren being out again, which we don't know for sure at this time of week. But, I mean, you look at the workload the last few weeks for Najee Harris, 14 carries, 2 targets, 13 carries, 6 targets, 18 carries, 5 targets. It's once again, it's dependent on Jaylen Warren being out. But in that scenario, on this slate, it would be hard not to consider going to Najee Harris again. Is Warren officially out?
It'd be easy for me not to go to Najee Harris.
Somebody in chat said Warren is out. I didn't know if that was official. I thought he was just considered unlikely to play, not officially out.
He's doubtful. Yeah. I don't know. Najee grosses me out, this guy. Like he's terribly inefficient. They have injuries on the offensive line. I'm not saying this Raiders defense is good because they aren't, but you had a guy, Aaron Shamplin, the Harvard grad, who still got 4 attempts last week. You had Jonathan Ward, who they pulled off the practice squad, got 2. Like, okay, that might not seem like a lot, but that's 6 attempts between those 2 guys. I don't know.
Oh, you know, it was somebody who I just realized that people have given up on, but he's also in that price range. All anybody wanted to talk about the first couple weeks of the season was J.K. Dobbins. Nobody wants to play He's 2 just terrible games in a row. And now J.K. Dobbins, I mean, he's been as inefficient as Najee Harris, and nobody wants to play J.K. Dobbins anymore. If anybody really liked J.K. Dobbins earlier in the season, I mean, I don't see a compelling reason you wouldn't like him now as well.
Yeah, and they're coming off of a bye, which is helpful. The last 2 matchups were Pittsburgh and Kansas City, just 2 truly dominant run defenses. Justin Herbert was banged up badly. Now, he's still not going to be 100%, but getting that additional week of rest is huge. They also expect Joe Alt back for this one, which is another big deal, right? Like, this is a really good offensive tackle. So all of these things are pretty beneficial. I don't think it's crazy. I actually don't think it's nuts at all that you would go to Dobbins. And, you know, like Joe Alt, you look at his run blocking grade, it's excellent. You know, he's just very, very good. So, got 6'8", 322. This guy's a rookie, by the way, Greg. He's a rookie that has been like already really good. So I think Dobbins as like, because he's 6,200. I still like Pollard a little bit more, but I don't think Dobbins is crazy. My guess is that his ownership is very low.
Yeah, it's around what 10% is where we have J.K. Dobbins. So relatively low. The other cheap running back that's worth considering to me is Alexander Madison, under the assumption that Zamir White doesn't play again.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch, personally wouldn't touch him.
It's 5,300. We're gonna have to find cheap running backs to play somewhere.
Listen, I hear you. What I'm saying though is what I'm saying is no, I don't. Like, I would rather just fade the expensive stacks than play Alexander Madison. That's just
Okay.
me. That's just me. This guy stinks. I mean, he stinks. And
Here's the
Pittsburgh,
problem, though. We've already put in an expensive stack. We have to we have to fill it out somehow.
no, I hear you, but this is why I love doing this show, because we can see, like, we can try and put these guys in. I'm saying personally, like right now with the way I'm building, because we'll build like a balanced lineup after this. I don't know, man. I know Madison saw 15 carries last game. Maybe I'm off here. Maybe I'm off, but against the Steelers defense, that's tough. Either way, let us at least throw Pollard in. You can pick the second guy.
All right. Yeah,
I know Pollard's expensive. I still think he's the best value, like point per dollar running back.
Yeah, it was 15 carries and 3 targets out of Alexander Madison. Was it say there, Jordan, that our average remaining salary is? Okay, so we're going to need a running back, I think, that's priced around that 5K range. And to me, the options, I mean, they're all fucking terrible. We could go to like Alexander Madison, we could go to Najee Harris, we could go to Javonte Williams. But like, unless there's somebody I'm not thinking of, I don't know who else we'd go to here, because we can't really go up to, like Kamara or Bijan Robinson, I think, right now, just because we need to get underneath that average remaining salary.
Who do we have projecting the best in that range?
Let's see.
I mean, it's
Projecting the
Najee.
best. Yeah, it's Najee, and it's a fairly low projection, 14.5 fantasy points.
All right, let's try Madison.
Got Madison just over 14.
Yep, which is a good projection there. Yeah. Maybe I'm being too critical. It's still early in the week. I'm open to change my mind, Greg. Guy
Hopefully,
stinks.
not like hopefully, but what's going to happen is other value is going to open up because other players are going to get hurt. Not saying like, oh, hopefully players get hurt. It's just inevitable players are going to get hurt, and then other value will open up.
Of course. I'm honestly thinking about the QB +3 and playing. Man, we don't have Tolbert or Turpin projected well at all, so that's probably not going to look good for us.
Yeah, the cheap wide receivers that are like in that 5K range that stand out to me. One of them is for sure Josh Downs. Potentially Dontavian Wicks. I don't know for sure. Like, I assume Romeo Doubs is going to be back after whatever the hell happened last week. But if for some reason he isn't, because it does seem like he is at odds with the team, then Wicks at $5,200 would stand out. I know he didn't have the best fantasy game last week, but he was very involved in the offense. It just didn't equate to fantasy points.
No. I liked him too. I like Rashad Bateman if you want to go cheap this week as well.
Let's see. Bateman at 4,100. Yeah, I don't hate going to Bateman.
He doesn't project great for us, but it's also a 52.5 point total game between the Commanders and Ravens. Like that just seems, if you're building these type of lineups, this seems like something. If we went Bateman, that gives us 5,800 remaining per player.
And one other guy too that projects pretty well for us that I think is really hard to look past, Ray McLeod. His workload is been pretty consistent. He's not getting, throws downfield. Depth of target isn't great, but for DraftKings purposes, where we're looking at PPR and we're kind of starved for value, a guy who had 9 targets last week, 7 targets the week before, you get another one of these games where it's like 6 catches for 65 yards or something. It's serviceable.
Nico Collins to the IR. How about that?
Oh, they just said yesterday that he was like day to day.
And well, they changed it to week, and now it's really week to week.
Yeah. Now it's like month to month.
Yeah. If you put Ray and Bateman in there, you have 7,300 for the last player if you actually wanted to do that. And if you wanted to go down the Patriots D, that gives you 7,600 per player.
We could upgrade Madison then to something that sucks less.
You could do that. You could go like a David Montgomery or a man. I wanted to try and get to Kamara.
It's tough at 7,700.
Ray McLeod.
Ray McLeod. Who projects the best of just all the players we have left now, Jordan? Bijan? What do you make of Bijan's workload at this point?
I love
mean,
him
he's
this
priced
week.
down for it at $6,600. It's just been, we have him projected to be massively popular on our first run. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think people are going to be scared off by the recent workload. I think it's a good buy low spot for Bijan, but I would be lying if I said that I was confident that he's just going to get the lion's share of the workload.
I'm not confident, but it's very difficult to get away from him this week.
Take Madison out, Jordan, and put in Bijan Robinson, and then we'll see who we have.
That gives us 6K.
Yeah.
Probably George Pickens being the guy there. If you wanted to run back with Jameson Williams, you could as well at 5,800.
Who's projecting the best there, Jordan? It's Najee Harris.
If you took the defense, replaced it with Patriots, that gives us 6,300. You could get Chuba against Atlanta. You could get Pittman. You could get Dobbins. You could get Dobbins there. That's interesting. That lineup doesn't look horrible if one of Bateman or McLeod has a decent game. Prescott, Pollard, Bijan, CeeDee Lamb, Bateman, McLeod, Ferguson, Dobbins, Patriots D.
Would you rather go? I'd actually rather go Chuba, but I mean that we could go either.
Go for it. Go for it. Go ahead. Throw Chuba in there. I bet this lineup looks really good if you have Patriots defense and Chuba Hubbard in there. Yeah, I bet this is a positive lineup.
We shall see. Yeah, Deuce Trey, Bijan sharing carries with his backup running back. I mean, it's not even been like a backup to this point. It's just been 1A, 1B.
Mm-hmm.
Great lineup. Yeah, you guys will see. That's the new marking that you'll see here on screen. If you build a lineup that sims out, not just based on what the ROI is, but based on like all the available other lineups on the slate and kind of like the moving scale of what ROI could look like on a week-to-week basis, you'll see right here. It says great lineup. So now if you build a lineup and it is actually really good for the slate, you'll see great lineup will show up on screen as well.
Yeah, the whole Bijan thing is tricky, man. Okay, so if we have ownership coming up to lock and he's that popular, that's where I'm willing to, draw a line, Greg. That's right. Go ahead.
I would consider Algier if Bijan's going to be 45% owned.
That's a great call. How much is he though?
Let's see, Tyler Algier.
5,100.
It's reasonable.
That's actually a good call. Now, obviously you're talking tournament format, right? Like this is Bijan's still got to be a cash game play without question.
Yeah.
But in tournaments, yeah, maybe Algier would actually look like somebody worthwhile. He hasn't had any big games yet, but he's been involved in the passing game. Same amount of targets as Robinson last week. And if Robinson gets off to a slow start against Carolina, maybe maybe Algier ends up just getting opportunity. That's a crazy thought, though.
I mean, the guy is Bijan more often. The guy is certainly Bijan more often than not. But like right now, it's Algier's projected for 2% ownership and Bijan's 44% owned. Like I don't think it's Bijan over Algier like at a 25-1 clip.
So total touches over the last 2 weeks, Bijan 26, Algier 19. Neither of which are all that inspiring.
Not at all.
All right. So that grades out well. Let's try. Yeah, you know what? We can try. Well, actually, do we even know Fields is starting?
I assume so.
I don't know.
You think they're gonna? You think old Russ is gonna come in and take his job?
Well, so I think Fields starts, but Tomlin has not made it official yet, and also is essentially like it's a possibility that Russell Wilson gets some first team reps this week as well. I think it will be Fields. I'm just throwing that out there that it's not definitive yet, but I do think it will be Fields.
They're 3-2. They've been good so far this year. I think it'd be if Fields sucks this week in a good matchup against the Raiders, then I think they start to consider Russell Wilson.
I agree.
Not quite this week though.
I'm with you. Also, Justin Fields is legitimately the only viable cheap running quarterback, unless you see somebody else. I'm disgusted by what's down below 6K this week.
Let's see, so Fields is $5,800. If you want to play a naked Bo Nix lineup at $5,400,
I don't.
Andy Dalton 5,200 against the Falcons.
That's semi-viable just because Carolina pass protects really well and Atlanta has no pass rush, but they have a great secondary. And, you know, I still don't like it. It's ugly. I mean, I'm telling you, it's ugly down there, which is, you know, back to what SMP said. If Will Levis plays, I guess 4,800 isn't insane. It's really not.
How many times did Jake Haener run the football in his brief stint on the field last week? Is he capable of running? He looks like a punter. That's no good.
Jake Haener sounds like a punter.
Look at it.
He had 2 for 11. Let's start with Justin Fields and Pickens and see where we can go with this.
Yeah, I'm just checking Jake Haener's college stats, see if he ran a lot. The quarterback options are so shitty. If he starts at $4,800 and we're really starved for value, I could see me playing some naked Haener lineups.
Okay. And by the way, you guys ever want to check this tool out? The link is right in the description and it's in chat. So if you just expand the description, if you're on your phone or on your computer, you'll see it right there. Join Stokastic NFL. Click that link, takes you to the join page. And even if you're just trying to see what the options are, you'll see weekly and monthly, the essentials, light, core, and max. So I won't get into all of it. You can check it out for yourself. But the single lineup sim is included with, it's included with the light, it's included with core and with max. And, you know, post contest simulator, which is a super important tool. Ben and I use it every Tuesday on the First Look show. That's included with all 3 of those as well. Once you get to the core, it's clearly the best value for your money because you're getting the boom bust tool, the top stack tool, the stat projections, the late swap simulator, and the contest generator and the actual pre-contest simulator up to 1,000 lineups. But it really just depends on your style of play. I mean, you mentioned it a lot, Greg, but like if you're not somebody that's playing the massive field contest every time, playing single entry 3 max or stuff like that, even more, but smaller field contest, the core is a fantastic value. But it really just depends on what style of play you have, what your bankroll looks like, but there's something for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. And then one other thing to add as well is that hockey season started yesterday, at least in terms of like actual normal size slates. And then today there's pretty big contests over on DraftKings. If you guys are looking to play hockey, you could sign up for an NHL package with promo code NHL24, just $1 for 5 days. So if you've been wanting to play hockey or even just play around with one slate, it's only $1. So a link for that is down below as well. Just $1, promo code NHL24.
Yeah, find it all down there. One link, and then the link, of course, for $1 for NFL. All of the projections and data for that for $1. But if you ever have questions, guys, hit us up. on Twitter, or if you jump into the Discord, hit us up there. We're happy to answer them. And, that's what the community is all about, right? All right.
And
So Fields and
sorry. One more thing that I was going to add before we get past it, just to have it up my screen. Jake Haener, no longer a real consideration. I looked up his college stats. The most yards he ran for in his senior year of college was
negative
4.
12.
It was 4. So that's a
Okay,
no-go
I was
for
close.
me. Yeah,
I was
you
close.
weren't that far off. He had a total of, and I know part of it's because of how sacks are included as negative rushing yards in college, but still, his entire senior year, he had negative 123 rushing yards. I don't want to
that's
roster him.
not viable. Fields, Pickens. I kind of like, okay, so this is one of those spots where I'm always intrigued by a run back, because if this is the type of game where Fields and Pickens both go off, you're gonna need a kind of a more, I would think, of a pass heavy approach from the Raiders. Otherwise, Arthur Smith wants to play conservative football. And so I think there's a few ways this could go. The Raiders go up early and the Steelers need to throw. This is what won the Millie for somebody a couple weeks ago. My best week of the season was week 4 by far. I had an awesome week because I had the Fields Pickens combo, and that was because they were playing from behind, right? So if that's the case, I'd like to get a Bowers or a Trey Tucker or somebody in there.
I also don't mind, because that exact same week, the combination that went off, and because he's very cheap, I think he's worth going back to. Pat Freiermuth as well at $4,300. I think there are viable double stacks with Fields, Pickens, and Freiermuth. But if we're looking for a run back, yeah, Brock Bowers at 6K makes a lot of sense. You could make a case for Madison as well, just as the lack of other cheap running back options. But yeah, I agree with you. Bowers is probably number 1 guy.
I'm just pulling something up real quick here in the post contest simulator. I wanted to see if there was a run back in that game, and maybe there wasn't, because run backs just simply haven't been as necessary.
One of the other reasons too, while you're checking that run backs haven't been as necessary, scoring just down across the entire league. And that's going to make it so that there's a little bit less of emphasis on top lineups having run backs, because, if games are going to be 17-14, it's hard to get production from a ton of players from the same game.
Yeah, it's true. All right. So the top, excuse me, top Justin Fields lineup in the power sweep, it didn't have a run back. So yeah, maybe we don't. And I'm not just using one game as an example of that, but the second one did. The guy that finished 4th had Josh Downs. So we don't need one. We can build elsewhere and come back to it.
All right. Yeah, let's go. Because there's nobody who, Bowers is okay. Madison's okay. But nobody in our projections is like terrific from the Raiders side of the game. And now also we could build a running back comfortably with the chalk running backs now than Kamara and Bijan Robinson.
Yeah. So I'm just doing what we usually do, Greg. I'll throw in, let's just do Saints defense. Okay. Right. They project well. Who cares? Again, when we throw defenses in for this show, we're not putting thought into it. Just so we're clear. It's a Wednesday. We're not putting thought into it. Give me the teams that project the best and are the cheapest. I don't think we've ever paid for a defense on this, just because we want to see what we can build.
No, and I thinking back at all the slates I've played this year, I don't think there's been a defense that's been over 3K that's been in more than 10% of my lineups for the entire season.
I think I'm with you there. Yeah. So this gives us almost 6K per player with Fields, Pickens, and Saints D. See, it's still not super easy. If you wanted to throw Freiermuth in there as well, you could. I don't know if I love the QB +2 stack on Fields, but Freiermuth is cheap. I think Dalton Schultz is interesting this week.
Yeah, especially now that not that we're expecting Nico Collins to play, but now that's confirmed that he's going to be out for an extended period here. I assume we had Nico Collins out in our projections, but I'm not positive.
We definitely have to.
Yeah,
We
so
have
let's
to.
we could try. I mean, Dalton Schultz also, he's only $4,100. The other cheap tight ends I'd be considering, like Cade Otton, Tucker Kraft, maybe potentially again. Yeah, I'm good with Dalton Schultz at 4,100.
Okay, cool. Jake, yeah, I agreed. I mentioned that yesterday to Ben. DraftKings preemptively priced up Tank Dell, north of 6K. It's actually a pretty tough click on Tank Dell this week. You'd love to be like, oh, let's just stack Houston now. It's not actually that easy.
What
Um,
was Tank Dell's? Do you remember what Tank Dell's? I'll try to look it up. What was his price point last year?
well, it fluctuated a ton, I believe.
Yeah, I want to check though. Like when he was going well and had like an established role in the offense, Tank Dell last year actually never got above 6K.
Really?
Oh no, he got up to my bad. He had a $6,900 price tag 1 week. That was the only week he was above 6K though. The other week's 5,900, 55, 53, 49, 48. Tank Dell is 5,400 this week. Actually, I like Tank Dell at 5,400.
Yeah, Tank Dell's well on FanDuel. Did you
No,
say
on is he not
he?
5,400 on DraftKings?
No, that's what I was saying. He's 6,200, which is just it's tough to get to.
Why did I think he was 54?
I don't know. He's not though. And Stephon Diggs is one of the most expensive receivers on the slate. Stephon Diggs is 7,400. I let's
I
see
agree with
what
you on
happens.
Schultz.
We have 6,300 per player remaining. 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. We have some wiggle room here. Like we have some options. I
I
don't
do
know.
agree with you though. I think Schultz is the points per dollar best looking pass catcher on Houston. I'll take
Yeah.
Dell out of the lineup, by the way, Jordan.
You know, if you tried to go with a balanced build here, like one of the things I like is instead of Bijan, what about a $6,700 Drake London?
Is there any just because he missed the end of last game? Is there any risk of him sitting this week, or is that not a
No,
problem?
he's fine. I saw him post game too. He was out there talking to. Like, he seemed fine. He seemed fine.
Yeah,
He
I think
he's
Drake
just been
London. He's also going to be popular. Not as popular as Bijan, but they'll both be popular.
6,700. If you throw Drake London in there, where do we have David Montgomery projected? I was hoping the tools would like him a little bit more. They don't though. In that spot against Dallas. Jacobs, Bijan. I would love to say let's try a Bijan and Drake London lineup, but it's tough because they still have Darnell Mooney, you still have Tyler Algier, you still have McLeod. My guess is though that the Sims would give us some Bijan London lineups this week.
Yeah, I think a lot of them would have Cousins at QB though. Cousins at 6,200 is I know we were talking about QBs who were sub 6K before, but as good as Cousins has looked so far this year in the matchup against the Panthers, $6,200, he is somebody who I'm going to want to have in lineups for sure.
Sure. Yeah, I have no problem with it. I just worry that they're going to run the shit out of the ball. Should we try to throw Kamara in here and see what this gives us?
Yeah.
5,700. So still not bad.
Yeah, we would
If you
just have to have a cheap running back or a cheap wide receiver.
If you threw Pollard in there, then you have 5,500 per player for the remaining 2 spots.
Okay.
So far, we haven't had to go any clear value. Pickens is discounted, but that's good because we have him with Fields. We have London, Kamara, Pollard, Dalton Schultz. What happens if we go with one cheap receiver here?
Trey Tucker?
It's not crazy, right?
I mean, we've seen that he has a little bit of a ceiling, and he hasn't been priced up at all. But Devontae Adams out again seems like he's done overall just playing with the Raiders. They're going to get Tucker touches. He's going to get some targets. He's going to get some rush attempts. He's going to get red zone touches. I like him this week.
I do too. So Chris Godwin, or okay, hold on. Let me get. What if we went Bijan flex? It gives us 7K. You could get to a Jaden Reed. You get to Jaden Reed. Godwin would still be there. So would you rather Drake London and Chris Godwin, or Bijan Robinson and Jaden Reed?
Probably the Bijan Robinson and Jaden Reed.
I think so too.
Good matchup for Reed as well against the Cardinals.
I also wonder if this is going to be a week where we get a lot of running back at flex.
It's so hard to say because so many of the guys, like there aren't that many running backs that I love this week. Kamara, Robinson, Pollard's good for 6K, but it's not like Pollard is great for any slate at 6K. He's just like better than the other options for this particular slate. So I don't know there's going to be that many of them. There would need like one or two more good looking running backs to open up.
Jordan, what line do you have? Pickens, Reed, Tucker, Schultz. What's that? No, so swap out London for Reed, and then Trey Tucker, and then Bijan. I think this will sim out well as well.
Yeah, and then Tucker obviously also run back. Not like that he's one of my favorite overall players on the slate, but I think he's a good source of value relative to the other options we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not great, but I still like it. 4,200. Probably get some work here. Yeah. I think this will look good. 88. Okay. Not bad.
No, not at all. Want to do a FanDuel lineup before we close up?
Sure. I haven't looked at FanDuel yet, so let's do it. And again, guys, I hope this is giving you a decent idea of what building lineups looks like right now without, maybe some pertinent injury news, but we might not get any. I've looked at the injury reports. It's also entirely possible that we just don't get injury news that's going to, have kind of a seismic shift in what this slate looks like. You may not think so, being like, oh, what are you talking about? It's week 6 and there's a lot of injuries. Yeah, but these sites have priced a lot of these guys up. Many of them, the guys who could be out have already been out, Devontae Adams, Joe Mixon, Jonathan Taylor, Nico Collins, they already priced up these other pass catchers. So unless you get, in practice type injuries, Greg, I really don't think value is going to open up unless something happens throughout the week at practice that has not occurred yet.
Yeah, I assume it will just because it has happened every other week this year. But to your point, if it doesn't, then we're just playing with tight salaries.
Yeah. And we built one with Dak. It didn't look terrible. It simmed out nicely. I think I'm still more aligned with some of these balanced stacks, though, personally. Balanced builds.
Have to be.
Yeah. It would not be easy to stack Lamar this week.
No, and I mean, I'm looking also. Lamar's $9,500 on FanDuel. Like, it's a great matchup against Washington, but that is so much to spend for a QB on a slate without value.
That's a fortune. And it's a spot you want to get to. 6.5 point favorites, 52.5 point total. I mean, God, how do you not love a spot like that? But what does that do to the rest of your lineup if you're playing a $9,500 Lamar Jackson?
He's also kind of popular. He's almost 10% owned on FanDuel. I'd rather just go cheaper. I just brought him up before, but Kirk Cousins still reasonably priced at $7,400 on FanDuel. The guys who are priced around him, it's Daniel Jones at $6,800, Joe Flacco $7,200. I think Kirk Cousins at $7,400. I'd like to try a Falcon stack.
Sure. Sure. Let's try a
Also,
Falcon stack.
it gets a little bit of leverage off of popular Bijan Robinson.
Let's do it. Let me set this up too. All right.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins, go Drake London in there, Jordan.
What
Go
do we
Kyle
have?
Pitts.
Go ahead.
Do you want? How do you feel about Kyle Pitts in Kirk Cousins stacks? He actually was involved last week.
He was. Let's see the pricing here. So London's 74. Mooney is 65. Wow.
Pitts is
McLeod's
59.
56. Pitts is 59.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it doesn't look like there's any egregious pricing that we have to get to for tight end. We could try Pitts. Also, the reason I think you might be a little bit higher on this stack than I am is because, well, the reason I might be a little bit lower on it is that Cousins threw 58 times last game. You know, in four previous games, 35, 29, 29, and 26. I'm just not convinced that Zach Robinson, if they're in a favorable game script, wants to throw the football. That's the one drawback on this stack for me is last week playing from behind, insane 66-point shootout on Thursday. His passing volume has been really low prior to last week.
Has gone up week over week, though. So there is a part of me that last week was an outlier. That's the most pass attempts and the most yards he'll have the entire season and the most touchdown passes. All his numbers across the board. It was the highest that he's going to have of everything. But I do think there's also a little element of this that he's older. He's coming back from a torn Achilles. He's with a new team. It made sense for them to have kids' gloves on and the training wheels out a little bit for the first few weeks of the season. Because you do look the week before against the Saints, that was a more reasonably scored game. And he did have 35 pass attempts in that game, which was the most he had of the season to that point. And the week before, he had 29 pass attempts, which he started with 26 pass attempts week one. So it's slowly gotten ramped up. He's not going to have 58 again. And this isn't my favorite quarterback to be targeting, but he is certainly one that's going to be in my player pool. And I see it as a reasonable way to get some leverage off of a popular Bijan.
Do you think you should want Deontay Johnson in this lineup then if you're playing a stack on a team that's a 6-point road favorite?
No, you don't have to, especially not on FanDuel.
I don't think you have to either. But the only way this happens is if Dalton finds a way to keep it close.
Yeah, or like Chuba Hubbard has a decent game. It could be a number of guys that end up scoring.
Where's our best value at running back on FanDuel?
Well, since the Sunday night game is on the slate, if Singletary's out again, Tyrone Tracy is $5,800. He looked good last week.
He did. He looked really good. And we're projecting Singletary to be out right now. So, oh, and Tracy's got the Bengals. That's right.
Yeah. $5,800 Sunday Night Football. That's like, that might be the worst defense in the NFL right now, the Bengals, because
they are. They're neck and neck with maybe 2 or 3 other teams.
This is where it gets really unfair. The quarterbacks get graded just based on win-losses. Joe Burrow's been ridiculous as of late. You know, week one, total shit show, but yet T. Higgins was out. Jamar Chase was on a snap count. Outside of that, Burrow's been really good this year. And people I see online, it's like Joe Burrow overrated. Teams want. What else was he supposed to do last week?
No. He's done everything he possibly can. He's been one of the, outside of week one, Joe Burrow might be the best quarterback, might have played better than any quarterback in the league right now. Obviously, you know, you can throw Lamar into the mix. So, you know, don't get all upset when I say this. People get so upset about this shit. But Joe Burrow he's been as good as any quarterback in the league. You know, he's operating a top 3 offense right now. It's just the defense is doing everything in their power to lose games for him each week. That's what it comes down to. I'm with you.
30 of 39 last week, 392 yards. Anyway, the point is that all the struggles of the Bengals, it's because that defense is dog shit. And Tyrone Trace is a good option. You need Devin Singletary to be out, but if that's the case, I think he's the best value running back on FanDuel, 5,800.
He is. I don't even think it's close. And then who do we want to get? We have 6,700 per player remaining. I'm throwing a defense in here. Give me a cheat. Give me Falcons, $3,800. I don't want to do that with the stack.
Let's see. What is cheap on FanDuel? I mean, we could go back to the Patriots at 3,200. Yeah, just plug in the Patriots.
Just throw the Patriots in. We are in business now. 75 remaining. So we don't have a ton of limitations here. And I don't think you or I are paying for Barkley or Henry in this spot. Kamara 80. Yeah, let's try it. I'm also not opposed to, so if you go down a little bit further at wide receiver, there's a few options here. George Pickens is cheap.
We could
Jacoby
just go
Myers.
We could just go Johnson now at 6,900. Deontay.
I'm perfectly fine with that.
Then we get the run back. He's reasonably priced. I don't think you
Perfectly
need
fine
him in stacks as a run back, but if he fits in, I think he's still a good option. Like, he's a good option even outside of stacks for the slate.
If we go St. Brown or CeeDee Lamb, will we have a decent flex? Like, what could we do at flex if we went CeeDee Lamb? It gives okay, Dalton Schultz, Yosivas, Mingo, Jamal Williams, not much there. So that gets kind of ugly.
Yeah, I'd rather look in like the Jaden Reed price range at 7,700 and see what that gives us at the flex.
The only other thing that I would throw out to you is if you went Amon-Ra St. Brown, it would give you Madison, Cortland Sutton, or Ray McLeod. I still don't love it though. Let's try Jaden Reed. That'll open some things up. 6,900. It's not great.
Yeah, who's
I would go McLaurin here.
Who is the highest overall projection there, Jordan? We talked about it a little bit last week with how, and I know you had given out bets in your tails package as well with some ladders or Ramondre Stevenson, where it was like the most Fugazi start ever. Gibson had one carry, and then it was like, all right, Stevenson back on the field.
I mean, it literally played out exactly the way I wrote it up. That it was bullshit. Gerard Mayo was giving him the fake non-starter role, right? And Gibson's going to get one drive, 3 and out. Who came in? Ramondre Stevenson. Like, it was just, the writing was on the wall. It was the most obvious thing in the world. DraftKings or FanDuel priced 38.5 rushing yard prop for Ramondre Stevenson. You know how patently absurd that is? 38.5.
What is it this week?
Bet it's a lot higher. I don't know. I absolutely, it was my biggest straight bet of the season.
Clearly worked out. And now also something else. I mean, we do have the Patriots defense. I know it was just kind of as a placeholder, but there's a little bit of positive correlation there as well. Let's throw Stevenson in.
There's probably not one out yet.
Yeah, there's nothing. I was just pulling it up on my phone to check.
I threw McLaurin in there and ran it, and it gave us a 76.
Okay. Let's see what it looks like with the Stevenson and Patriots D combo.
It's going to look better, but I also think with the way, a little bit better. With the way that Baltimore's defense has been completely incapable of stopping the deep ball this year, and the way that Jaden Reed is slinging it right now, Terry McLaurin at sub 7K in this spot, 52-point total game is really, I think, a quite good option this week.
I agree. I agree. And McLaurin, what's his ownership on FanDuel? He's somewhat popular, but for good reason, right around 20% owned, $6,800. Yeah, he's a really good option there.
Anything you want to look at before we get out of? Oh, and by the way, guys, I talk to you about all the time. If you have any of the packages, you have also the optimizer for Underdog, for Prize Picks, for DraftKings Pick Six, all of those that just optimizes the best lineups for you. If you're not on Underdog yet, I'm trying to get Josh to do some of these best ball for NBA. It's right up his alley. You know, he's doing projections for them early in the year. They have the NBA best ball with massive top prizes. They have the daily drafts for NFL, weekly drafts for NFL, best ball for every sport. They have the pick'em, obviously, where you can up to 20x your entry by just essentially building out lineups with hires or lowers on all of these players' props. I always say it, like, if you're playing DFS and, you know, if you're in a legal betting state, clearly it just makes sense. You bet them, but the DFS and betting are working in fantastic harmony together. Whereas if you're playing a guy in DFS, it might have no connection whatsoever to his prop, but also you're putting so much research in. And in DFS, you need so many things to go right for you to end up having a big day. You might end up being right on like 3 or 4 players that you're way overweight on, but it doesn't matter because you missed those other spots. If you're not grabbing exposure to these guys in other ways, I mean, I do it all the time. Like Ramondre Stevenson, I had 0 DFS exposure to last week, but there's no way I wanted to miss out on those props, right? Because he was overpriced on DraftKings and FanDuel because the pricing was already out. But the props weren't out. And when they were, they came down once the news came out from Gerard Mayo. You would have benefited nothing from Ramondre Stevenson if you're not finding ways to target these props. And Underdog's a great way to do it. 50% first match deposit bonus up to $250. It's instantly injected into your account as well when you deposit. It's no drip or anything like that. So if you're looking to get in, links in the description and in the chat. I can't stress it enough, though, Greg, the amount of times where it's totally inactionable from a DFS perspective, but it's one of the best opportunities you could ever make from a bet. Remember Kevon Looney in the playoffs where he was sick and the books hung the lines?
Yeah, there was there's situations like that all the time. Even, I mean, the Kevon Looney, they used to give him the fake starts to, it used to be back-to-backs where he had the Iron Man streak and the Warriors didn't want to break it. And this is when Looney, now he's not as important piece to their team, but when he was, what they would do is if they want to give him fake rest, and it wasn't that hard to tell, it'd be on the tail end of a back-to-back, they're playing on the road, he would get the start, but he would just check out at the first whistle and play like 2 or 3 minutes. And yeah, those would be really easy unders as well, where he'd be like 8.5 rebounds and you play 3 minutes.
Yeah. And you just hammer it. Anyway, Jordan said too, a ton of MLB pick'em boosts on Underdog today and NHL. Yeah, they do a lot of boosts, a lot of discounts, free squares, you name it. Link in the description, 50% match up to $250. Anything else you want to get into before we head out for the morning?
No, that's it. Just once again, guys, see Jake DeWitt's talking about it in chat, but Wednesday's the final day for a 1-day NHL promo. It's just $1. If you're going to be playing hockey, take advantage of it. $1 for 5 days. Promo code is NHL24.
Appreciate you guys. Hey, follow Greg at G Ehrenberg DFS, me at Lafayette_D. If you do decide to come join us with whatever package it may be, don't forget, all of them include the premium Discord. Jump in there, say what's up, introduce yourself. Just a brief bio, you know, where you're from, where you were born, what you like to do for fun. Right.
Social security number, all that stuff.
Social, mom's maiden name. Don't do any of that. Just come in and say hi. Anyway, we'll see you guys back here for the next one. Greg and myself, Friday morning sim strategy show, tournament strategy, one of the best shows we do every week. So make sure to tune in for that. We'll see you back here soon. Peace.